15. If, therefore, anyone desires to define and comprehend the whole and peculiar power of an orator, that man, in my opinion, will be an orator worthy of so great a name, who, whatever subject comes before him and requires rhetorical elucidation, can speak on it judiciously, in set form, elegantly, and from memory, and with a certain dignity of action. But if the phrase which I have used, on whatever subject, is thought by anyone to be too comprehensive, let him retrench and curtail as much of it as he pleases. But this I will maintain, that though the orator be ignorant of what belongs to other arts and pursuits, and understands only what concerns the discussions and practices of the forum, yet if he has to speak on those arts, he will, when he has learned what pertains to any of them from persons who understand them, discourse upon them much better than the very persons of whom those arts form the peculiar province. Thus, if our friend Sulpicius have to speak on military affairs, he will inquire about them of my kinsman, Caius Marius, and when he has received information, will speak upon them in such a manner that he shall seem to Marius to understand them better than himself. Or, if he has to speak on the civil law, he will consult with you, and will excel you, though eminently wise and learned in it, in speaking on those very points which he shall have learned from yourself. Or if any subject presents itself requiring him to speak on the nature and vices of men, on desire, on moderation, on continence, on grief, on death, perhaps, if he thinks proper, though the orator ought to have knowledge of these things, he will consult with Sextus Pompeius, a man learned in philosophy. But this he will certainly accomplish, that of whatever matter he gains a knowledge, or from whomsoever, he will speak upon it much more elegantly than the very person from whom he gained the knowledge. But since philosophy is distinguished into three parts, inquiries into the obscurities of physics, the subtleties of logic, and the knowledge of life and manners, let us, if Sulpicius will listen to me, leave the former and consult our ease. But unless we have a knowledge of the third, which has always been the province of the orator, we shall leave him nothing in which he can distinguish himself. The part of philosophy, therefore, regarding life and manners, must be thoroughly mastered by the orator. Other subjects, even if he has not learned them, will be able, whenever there is occasion, to adorn by his eloquence, if they are brought before him and made known to him. 16. For it is allowed among the learned that Aratus, a man ignorant of astronomy, has treated a heaven and the constellations in extremely polished and excellent verses. If Nicander of Colophon, a man totally unconnected with the country, has written well on rural affairs with the aid of poetical talent, and not from understanding husbandry, what reason is there why an orator should not speak most elegantly on those matters of which he shall have gained a knowledge for a certain purpose and occasion? For the poet is nearly allied to the orator, being somewhat more restricted in numbers, but less restrained in the choice of words, yet in many kinds of embellishment his rival and almost equal. In one respect, assuredly, nearly the same, that he circumscribes or bounds his jurisdiction by no limits, but reserves to himself full right to range wherever he pleases with the same ease and liberty. For why did you say, Scavolia, that you would not endure, unless you were in my domain, my assertion that the orator ought to be accomplished in every style of speaking and in every part of polite learning? I should certainly not have said this if I had thought myself to be the orator whom I conceive in my imagination. But as Caius Lucilius used frequently to say, a man not very friendly to you, and on that account less familiar with me than he should wish, but a man of learning and good breeding, I am of this opinion, that no one is to be numbered among orators who is not thoroughly accomplished in all branches of knowledge requisite for a man of good breeding. And though we may not put forward such knowledge in conversation, yet it is apparent and indeed evident whether we are destitute of it or have acquired it, as those who play at tennis do not exhibit in playing the gestures of the palestria, but their movements indicate whether they have learned those exercises or are unacquainted with them. And as those who shape out anything, though they do not then exercise the art of painting, yet make it clear whether they can paint or not. So in orations to courts of justice before the people and in the Senate, although other sciences have no peculiar place in them, yet it is easily proved whether whether he who speaks has only been exercised in the parade of declamation, or has devoted himself to oratory after having been instructed in all liberal knowledge.